The NBA draft to me is almost like a colossal waste of time, and I hate what it's become. The NBA has to do something to impose a stricter age limit. This shit is getting out of hand. You've got so many guys coming out of college after 1 year to where when they're drafted, you don't know much about them. They really haven't shown you much. They could develop into great players and they could end up never developing at all and being complete and total bust. I mean, 1 year of college is not enough of a sample for so many of these players. The NBA has to step in, help the college game, eventually help the NBA game, institute an age limit of 20 or 21 or 2 or 3 years removed from your high school class because it's far too often you see these one and done players, and sure, you get those occasional one and done players that go on to be great professionals. But there are so many of those guys that it takes 3 or 4 years for them to even really step into themselves and really start to fulfill their potential. And by that time, they're out of their rookie contract and they're getting ready to go to greener pastures somewhere else. The NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, you've got to do something about this. You've got to change this, and you've got to change it sooner rather than later. I don't see how anybody can think this is ultimately a good thing because the NBA draft could be so much more and could be so much better, and it flat out is, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that flat out doesn't give much of a crap about it. Now, in terms of the winners, I'm not going with the glaringly obvious ones like Andrew Wiggins to the Cleveland Cavaliers at number 1 in his ridiculous draft suit, or Jabari Parker to the Bucks at number 2. I'm looking a little bit deeper, a bit under the surface to find some of those other draft winners. And I'll start off with the Denver Nuggets. This was a team here that I liked their approach. They were able to turn Evan Fournier and a second round pick into Arana Flalo. He was a guy that fills a very big need for them as a two guard. And to get him for a Fournier and a second round pick, I thought was a really good deal. Using your draft picks as currency to improve your NBA team. That's a good thing. Being able to get a guy like Gary Harris, where they did in the draft with the 19th overall selection, was a really big steal. To be able to take pick 11 and turn it into pick 16 and 19. Find yourself a big man that you could stash overseas for a couple of years. I thought the Denver Nuggets did a good job with this draft. The Miami Heat, being able to get a point guard like Napier and only having to move up 2 spots in the draft in order to do so. Here's a young player that comes from a championship team in UConn. LeBron James is obviously a big fan, so that doesn't hurt at all. But this is a guy that is ready to come in and contribute and do some nice things right away and provide some young, inexpensive depth that the Miami Heat sorely, desperately needed. Believe it or not, I actually like what the Charlotte Hornets did as well, adding both the Indiana kid. The big man is going to go nicely, I think, next to Al Jefferson, and then also looking at their addition late in round 1 when they swapped picks with Miami to be able to get a guy who played very well in the D League last year in PJ Hairston. I thought the Hornets did very well for themselves. And I also thought the NBA did really well for themselves, and Adam Silver in particular. It was a tremendous moment for them to sit there and take time to give Isaiah Austin his moment. If you don't know who he was the center from Baylor that was diagnosed with Marfan syndrome, which is a genetic heart condition that could potentially be fatal, which means that he wasn't able to play basketball anymore. You talk about a kid that was potentially a first-round talent that had his draft moment robbed from him, or so it would seem. But Adam Silver and the NBA stepped up to the plate in a big-time way. And in between picks 15 and 16, they made sure that Isaiah Austin got his moment. And I think Isaiah Austin ended up being a winner. The way he's taken this got to be horrible, earth-shattering news for him, because this has been so much of his life. This was his goal. This was his passion. And now it's been yanked away from him. This young man handled it with a tremendous amount of class and dignity, something that we surely can all learn from. And the way the NBA and Adam Silver in particular took the time to make sure that he still got his draft moment, this to me was the biggest win out of everybody's win on draft night. Now, sure, it's all fine and dandy to talk about the big winners in the NBA draft, but let's be honest, it's a lot more fun to make fun of those big losers in the NBA draft. And there were some big losers here for me in this draft. I look at the Orlando Magic, and I just sit there and wonder, why did they feel the need to take Gordon at number 4? To me, there were better players on the board. There were better players at a more important position of need for them, mainly point guard, a guy like Dante Exum, for example, out of Australia, who went to the Jazz at number 5. I just didn't like what they did with that 4th overall pick. I just thought there were better players on the board and better players as well at bigger positions of need. I would have maybe even said you take a Randall there at that point in time. I didn't like that. Some people will say, well, look at what they did getting Peyton, but still, it doesn't compensate for the fact that they made a very questionable selection, in my opinion, with a top 5 lottery pick. I look at the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, some people are going to look at this and put a positive spin on it and say potentially that this organization is setting themselves up very well for the long term, and that may very well be the case, and I may very well eat my words on this. But, the rest of the NBA, or at least some teams in the NBA, seem to understand this, but other teams do not. Having a big man or having a great front court is not nearly as important as it once was. The NBA is a perimeter and guard-dominated league and defined league today. And sitting there and building yourselves around a traditional Eastern Conference model of a big-time center and a defensive-minded power forward is just not the way to go. You spent your first-round pick last year on Nerlens Noel, a guy who didn't really play at all last season, and he'll be coming back from an ACL injury. Now you sit there and take a guy in Joel Embiid from Kansas, a guy who might not play much, if at all, this upcoming season. It sounds great in theory, but you're taking one injured big man, and then the next year, you're taking another injured big man with foot problems. How did it work out when you traded for Andrew Bynum? I mean, this shit here, I just don't get it. There are better potential players in terms of safer picks for the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, Embiid might end up being the best player in the draft. And like I said, I might eat my words. But then when you throw in the fact that they drafted a Saric and he's going to stay over in Europe for at least 2 years, I mean, if you're a 76ers fan, you got to sit there and say, what the fuck? Are you just intentionally trying to tank until 2017? The Minnesota Timberwolves were big losers here because their draft choice of Zach LaVine in the first round, in the lottery, for God's sakes. Why in the hell did they think he was a lottery pick? I don't know. You took a less than ideally skilled UCLA player last year, Shabazz Muhammad, and you turn around and did it again this year. It could be a couple of seasons before LaVine really contributes at the NBA level. And again, there were just flat out better players on the board at that point in time, regardless of the position. I just can't believe they did that. And then to sit there and not be able to get the Kevin Love trade done, this is going to get uglier as things go along and just become more and more of a distraction. And, they make a questionable choice in round 1 with their lottery pick, and then they don't get the Kevin Love deal done. That makes the Minnesota Timberwolves losers to me. But the biggest losers of all have to be the Toronto Raptors. Fran Fraschilla, statement of the night, when he talked about their first-round pick, Bruno, whatever the fuck his name is, the Brazilian Kevin Durant, who averaged all of like 4 points a game down in Brazil. He's 2 years away from being 2 years away. That sounds like the Toronto Raptors' future NBA championship aspirations. They are 2 years away from being 2 years away. Why in the fuck would you take this guy that didn't even dominate at his level of competition? I don't get it. And this gets to the whole stupid shit of the NBA. So many teams taking these international players that some pan out, that some never come over, and some don't pan out. Why sit there and do that? And why take a guy here that clearly was nothing more than a second-round talent because you're afraid somebody else might swoop in to get him? Well, maybe if that's the case, maybe you just don't need to take him, and maybe you go in a different direction. The Brazilian Kevin Durant, who averaged like 4 points a game down in Brazil, as Fran Fraschilla perfectly put it, 2 years away from being 2 years away. What losers. So there you have it, my biggest winners and losers for the 2014 NBA Draft. Now I've told you what I think. I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments who you think the biggest winners are, who the biggest losers are, and what your thoughts are on the NBA Draft today, and if you like it or if you don't, and what needs to happen to make the draft better. Let me know down below.